Hello, family, and welcome to another session of Role Model Experts Cafe. I'm your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me, I have an amazing lady, Miss Cindy Burns. Did I say your name correctly, Cindy?
Oh, yes,
Very
perfectly.
cool. Now, I've had the opportunity to see Cindy in a couple of networking events. I've heard her share her message and who she focuses on. And I thought that this is something that the families need to know about. It's a very important topic. So, Cindy, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here today with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about basically what you do and how you got involved in it in the first place.
Well, what I do is I guide widows through the grief process. I help them go from pain to purpose and grief to growth. It's
Right.
not, I don't stop just at, when they're feeling better. I help them because at that point they usually feel like, okay, what's next? What's my purpose now? And so I help them figure that out as well. And how I got into it, well, I'm a widow myself. It's almost 11 years. And excuse me, I got to that point. What's my purpose? I was retired with adult sons. I wasn't needed for anything really. And I needed to feel needed. I needed a purpose. I was no longer a wife, not really a full-time mother. And I felt lost. And then it was like synchronicity. I heard about forming memberships and becoming a life coach on the same day. And I signed up for both and I haven't looked back.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, what you're describing, I think, is a life cycle that many parents actually go through. First, you're like overseeing every activity of the child, and then as they become more independent, you are less and less needed. And of course, they never stop being your children. But you know, the reality of it is that at one point, when we become parents, we give up many facets of our own lives in order to serve the children. And then when they move off, that's one of the things that ends up happening. And we go through this in different parts of our life, whether it is marriage or whether it happens to be in parenting. Your spouse, you might become a widow, and in the process, all of a sudden it's like, all right, who am I gave so much to this relationship all these years. I've lost myself in the process, right? So this is a really, really important thing, and it's something that I really hope that everybody kind of ends up being proactive about it as opposed to being caught by surprise, right? You hear these stories about a spouse passes on and the other person is completely lost in the relationship and the life and everything. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that usually come up in situations where you have lost yourself in the relationship.
Well, I got to the point where I felt lost and I was afraid. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I was so busy being strong for
Mm,
everyone around me. And I
right.
didn't really have anybody to be strong for me.
That's, yeah.
And I think my membership for widows really takes that place of being helping them become strong.
Right.
I also think that in some ways, once they get past the full on grieving, and they're starting to look around, what's my purpose and that kind of thing, that is very similar to the empty nest syndrome.
Right.
And they're just kind of, what do I do now? So yeah, and it's been hard for me. It's also helpful to have a support system that's there when you need it, not where you have to wait for your appointment or something.
Right.
If you need to talk to somebody, it's really helpful to have them right there, even if it's not somebody that knows you well. It could be an online group, it could be my membership, it could be a friend you made online.
Right.
You know.
Actually, Cindy, you just mentioned something that's really, really important because in the process of giving, sometimes we forget that we also need to receive. And also think about it this way: if you're a giving person and you want to give to others and they don't want to receive, you kind of feel a little pulled back, right? So you kind of lose your support, not because people don't want to support you, but because you weren't open to receiving in the first place. So I'm thinking about this in the sense that if you've been giving for so long that it has become difficult to receive, now you're talking about something that is foundational, which is that support, and that support being available to you when you need it, not when it's convenient for them. And if you have withered away your support and your connections, that can become a very serious thing in your life, basically. It can affect your mood, your health, how you show up in the world, even professionally. So that's what you're talking about, and what you're doing is really, really important for people to have that support. So thank you for doing that. What are some of the tips that you have for members, and also what kind of things do you see usually when you have widows coming in? What kind of things do they complain about? Is their challenge?
Well, the first thing they want to know how long they're going to feel that way for.
Mm,
And the answer to that is who knows? There is no expiration date on grief, there's no timeline. Some women are, back to living their lives to the fullest in 6 months. Others, it takes a year, maybe 5 years. It all depends on the woman herself and the support that she has.
mhm.
The full on grieving where you're crying every day, that's the hardest and it feels like the longest.
Right.
But, and the more you know, the better you do in any situation. So the more you know about what you're going through, the more you can learn about what others are going through, so that you know you're not alone. Because so many widows, and I would guess maybe even like empty nesters and moms of small kids. I raised 6 sons. My
Mhm.
husband and I raised 6 sons. So I know about having a family. And I think that in all of those stages, you really do need the support of community, having others say that what you're going through and go, oh, good, I'm not alone. That's really important, is to connect with other people.
Right.
And I also tell them, when people tell me, oh, all my family and friends kind of took a step away after the funeral, or a couple weeks after, they went back to their lives and I'm left all alone. And nobody calls me, nobody invites me out. And usually what I tell them is the phone works both ways. Sometimes you have to be the one to reach out and say, you know, can we get together? Do you want to meet for coffee or lunch or, whatever, go to a movie? You know, I think that's as helpful as the ones that are constantly by your side. You It helps to reach out to others. And that's a hard thing to do when you're going through things.
Right.
It doesn't pop into your head because you're so wrapped up in your own feelings
Right.
that you don't realize that you need others, and how to go about forming that bond with other people.
Right. Well, you've lost a big connection there, right? So you're going through
Exactly.
processing that big connection. But whenever you lose a connection, you need to have more connections to, well, maybe not make up for it, but at least support you in the
Yes.
process, right? Very important. Yeah, we're social creatures. So without these connections, we are nowhere near as powerful. Evolutionarily, we would not survive, basically. So
Right.
it's hardwired into us to make connections. And you're correct. When you're going through the loss and the grieving process and sadness, many times it's difficult to make decisions. It's difficult to step forwards. It's difficult to take action. So what would you say as a daily thing that somebody that is going through that experience could do
Well,
to,
I have a checklist
oh,
for the beginning days. It's get out of bed, because the temptation is to just stay in bed, pull the covers up over your head, hug his pillow because it still smells like him,
mm,
things like that. So get out of bed, get dressed. You can shower, showering is helpful. Brush your teeth, eat a healthy breakfast. And that's my sticking point, is eating breakfast. I'm not a breakfast person, but I try to now. And drink plenty of water throughout the day. Those are basic things that everybody should be doing, but widows don't think of them.
mm.
They need to be told, especially in the very, very beginning. They just kind of close up into a little shell. And I personally, I couldn't be hugged without crying. If somebody came up to me and hugged me at church or something, the tears would flow. I don't know why that is,
Right.
but I found out that that's not uncommon. When
Because
somebody
but
showed,
that's not a bad thing for you to
no,
cry.
it's not.
Right, right.
No, yeah. And remember, yeah, that's another thing I tell them is feel your feelings.
Mm.
Acknowledge what you're feeling. Give into it for, a little while, and then say, okay, that's done for today. Now I'm going to move on to something that needs doing, cleaning
Mm.
my house or going to work or, taking care of the kids, whatever it is. And then as your feelings come up, don't push them away. Don't say, I'll feel that tomorrow. You go ahead and you feel it at the moment. Give it whatever you feel is a basic amount of time, like 20 minutes, an hour. You can journal about it while you're doing that. You can just, think about let good memories come through, whatever it feels like that's right for you. And then just kind of, I never say move on. I say move forward.
Right.
Because moving on feels like you're leaving something behind.
Correct.
Moving forward is you're bringing it with you.
Mm.
So yeah, you just go ahead and move forward with your day, and eventually you won't be spending the whole day in your feelings. And then it'll
I
come.
really like that. I think that should be like on your morning mirror or something. It's like move forward.
Yeah.
That's something that like I think anybody can use because we all have our
Hmm.
nowadays, right? And actually, it's so interesting the parallels between what you're describing, which is kind of like after family, as opposed to what I do, which is like in the heat of the family where you're raising small children, which is, I always say, support your brain so it can support you. And what you just described about movement and water and making sure you have breakfast, same foundational principles to support
Exactly.
your brain so that your brain can handle and deal with the process and move you forward in the day. Basically, it's handling a lot, even though physically you might not be doing it, inside you are. So
I do
absolutely.
get some younger widows who still have children at home asking me how to deal. And it's basically the same as an older widow. I don't give advice or deal with the children themselves. I'm
Mm,
not trained in that.
okay, right.
But I can tell her how to react to different things
Mhm.
because I know that's what I have done, even with my adult children or my grandchildren. My granddaughters have asked, they never met my husband. They were born after, but they ask a lot of questions. And, you answer them honestly, same way you would if they were your own child and they have questions about their father's death. So, yeah, it's for the woman herself, the path is still pretty much the same no matter the age or the life circumstances.
So I know that you work primarily with women, but
Mhm.
have you throughout your years seen it being drastically different for men or any parts that might be different?
I have not yet worked with men because
Right,
as a woman, I know
right,
women. The man's mind, the man's brain works a little differently. So
right.
I'm still getting used to that. I have visited some Facebook groups that include widowers. So
Mhm.
and I try to pick out the men in there and read what they have to say. So I'm getting a little more insight into the male widowed mind.
Right. I've felt based on some of the parenting and fatherhood kind of sites that I have seen and the members that are there, that for men, yes, you have the man cave and everything, but a lot of times they get kind of categorized as to, they're gonna suck it up and they're gonna get through their day, but they need the support just like the women do, but they never
Yeah.
talk about it. And again, that connection and connecting is really, really important.
Yeah, that's, I think the hardest thing for men is opening up and admitting what they're feeling. I also see, especially in older men, that there's a lot of single older women, so they kind of have their pick. And I do see that they usually remarry fairly quickly, a
Mm,
lot faster than the women do.
right. All right. So this is things that it's a lot deeper. It's easy to talk on the surface in a 10-minute interview like this, but I know that this is something that's a process. It takes a lot longer. It needs that support. So how can people connect with you and form some support, basically get support from you?
Well, my website is cindyjburns.com.
Okay.
I have a Widows Finding Purpose is my Facebook page, and I have a private free Facebook group called Widows Support Group, comma, Finding Purpose.
Awesome. Thank you. I'll be sure to put that in the chat box. And for our audience members, if you haven't already done so, as we've been talking about this, making connections is a habit. It's something that you should do it until you don't even think about it anymore. So I definitely encourage you to connect to Cindy. Even if you personally are not grieving, sooner or later, you will encounter situations, you will encounter others in your community that might be going through that process. And being a connection, being a connecting source, all of those things are very, very important for us to teach our children. We're more connected than ever before in history with internet, yet somehow we feel more isolated and alone than ever before. So let's make a habit of it and let's teach our kids this important thing that has made humans survive and thrive all over the planet, which is community building and forming support for one another. So please connect with Cindy and make sure that if you haven't already done so, click subscribe on the subscribe button so that you get notified of the latest experts and the gifts and that they bring to our channel. And we look forward to seeing you guys on those future episodes. Cindy, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate this powerful message that you're putting there. Guys, don't forget the description box. Any final words, Cindy, for our audience members before we finish today?
Well, I did forget, if they want to reach out to me directly, my email address is cindy@cindyjburns.com.
Perfect. All right.
And
That's there
I
too.
thank you so much for having me on. I found it very interesting. I like your insights as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a joy. We look forward to further collaborations. Cheers, guys.